Rose had always chased the sun, from the dusty vineyards of Napa Valley where she'd built her wine empire to the sun-drenched hills of Catalonia where she'd chosen to spend her final chapter. At 58, with silver threading through her auburn hair like veins of quartz, she was a woman who'd stared down boardrooms and bigots alike, turning Whitaker Vineyards into a billion-dollar legacy that spanned continents. But money couldn't buy time, and the pancreatic cancer had come like a thief in the night, stage 4, with a prognosis that left her doctors murmuring about months, not years. It was in the sterile hush of that Barcelona clinic, far from her Sacramento roots, that Rose decided to rewrite her ending. Not with another merger or a quiet retreat to some Swiss sanatorium, but with 4 little girls who'd never known a mother's arms. Lila Morales had been the spark in Rose's life for nearly 3 decades. Ever since they'd met at a gritty queer film festival in San Francisco, Rose, the polished exec in pearls and power suits, Lila, the fiery flamenco dancer with ink-black waves and a laugh that could shatter ice. Lila, now 55, had followed Rose across the Atlantic when the illness demanded a softer climate, trading her studio in Madrid for this rented villa with its terracotta tiles and bougainvillea-choked courtyard. Their love was the quiet kind, worn smooth by time. Mornings tangled in sun-warmed sheets, evenings debating Borges over glasses of Rose's own Tempranillo. But adoption? That was Lila's dream, whispered in the dark after Rose's diagnosis. "We can't just fade away," Lila had said, her hazel eyes fierce. "Let's build something that outlives us." The quadruplets, Elena, Sofia, Carmen and Pilar, arrived like a whirlwind on a sweltering August afternoon, 3 months ago. Born to a young Romani woman in a Seville slum who couldn't feed one, let alone 4, the girls had bounced through foster homes, their identical faces a blur of resilience and wariness. At 10 years old they were pint-sized forces. Chestnut curls perpetually escaping braids, green eyes sharp as sea glass, and voices that harmonized in rapid-fire Catalan when excited. The adoption papers had been a battle. Rose's American fortune greased wheels, but Spain's bureaucracy sniffed at her unconventional partnership with Lila. 2 women, no blood ties, the social worker had tutored, until Rose's lawyers invoked equality laws and a hefty donation to a local orphanage. From the start, it was chaos wrapped in wonder. The girls claimed the villa like conquerors, turning the sunroom into a fort of silk scarves and pilfered olives, their laughter echoing off the Gothic arches like bells from La Sagrada Familia. Elena, the boldest, with a scar like a crescent moon on her left cheek from a playground tumble, took to shadowing Rose in the garden, asking endless questions about the grapes that make you smile. Sophia, quieter with a habit of sketching birds on napkins, would curl up beside Lila during siesta, listening to stories of gypsy caravans and forbidden dances. Carmen and Pilar, the mischief duo, once dyed the courtyard fountain pink with stolen beet juice, their giggles turning to wide-eyed apologies when Rose pretended sternness before pulling them into a flower-dusted hug. But beneath the domestic idol cracks formed. Rose's treatments left her bedridden for days, her skin ashen against the white linens, morphine dulling the edges of her wit. Lila bore it with flamenco grace, chopping onions for paella one-handed while soothing nightmares, but doubt crept in like fog off the Ramblas. "Are we selfish, mi amor?" Lila murmured one night, tracing the 4 bruises on Rose's arm. "Dragging these girls into our storm?" Rose, ever the optimist, squeezed her hand. "Or giving them an anchor? Look at them, they're blooming." The first real storm hit in September, under a sky bruised purple with autumn's approach. It started with a letter, slipped under the villa's heavy oak door like a serpent's tongue. Rose recognized the return address. Whitaker Family Trust, Sacramento. Her estranged brother, Harlan, the only bloodkin she'd acknowledged since coming out at 30 and being disowned by their Bible-thumping parents. Harlan, now a silver-haired rancher with a chip on his shoulder the size of the Sierra Nevadas, had never forgiven her for abandoning the family name, or worse, thriving without it. The letter was a masterpiece of passive aggression, condolences for her condition, veiled jabs at her lifestyle choices, and a not-so-subtle inquiry about the estate. "The vineyards need steady hands," it read. "Blood hands." Rose burned it in the courtyard brazier, flames licking the parchment as Lila watched from the shadows. But the girls, ever the spies, had seen. That evening, over a dinner of fidua threaded with saffron, Carmen piped up, her fork stabbing a shrimp like an accusation.
"Tío Harlan es malo."
Uncle Harlan is bad? The table froze. Pilar, twinning her sister's frown, added, "He wants to take the grapes?" Rose exchanged a glance with Lila, who nodded. Better to face the wind than let it howl unchecked. In halting Spanglish, Rose explained, "Families could be thorny vines. Love the pruner that shaped them." She spoke of her own youth, the Sacramento summers harvesting Zinfandel under her father's scowl. The night she confessed her love for a girl named Clara and woke to locked doors. "I ran to the city lights," Rose said, her voice steady despite the ache in her bones. "Built my own table. And now this one with all of you." The girls listened, rapt, Elena's small hand finding roses under the table. Lila, eyes glistening, added her piece. The Madrid alleys where she danced for coins, hiding her heart until Rose's steady gaze made it safe to unfurl. It bonded them that night. A pact sealed with stolen bites of churros from the kitchen. But Harlan's shadow lingered. Whispers from the village market reached Lila, a American relation inquiring about the dying woman's affairs. Rose waved it off, focusing on legacy. She spent her good days in the villa's library, a cavern of leather-bound tomes overlooking the Gothic quarter, dictating letters to her trustees. The bulk of the empire, vineyards from Rioja to the Napa Valley, would fund scholarships for queer youth, women's shelters in Andalusia, art grants for performers like Lila. The girls? They'd inherit the villa, a trust for education, and, crucially, each other. "You're my harvest," Rose told them one crisp morning, as they picnicked amid the olive groves. "The sweetest yield." Yet doubt festered in Lila. Nights when Rose slept fitfully, Lila paced the balcony, the city lights blurring through tears. She'd always been the dreamer, Rose the doer. Now roles reversed, Lila felt adrift. A call from her own family in Seville, distant cousins who'd shunned her unnatural union, pushed her over. "Come home before it's too late," her aunt urged. "Those children need a real family." Lila hung up, slamming the phone against the wrought iron rail, the clang echoing like a warning. October brought fever dreams and faltering steps. Rose's doctor, a kindly Catalan with wire-rimmed glasses, upped the chemo, but the mirror showed a stranger. Cheekbones sharp as Sagrada spires, eyes sunken like forgotten wells. The girls adapted with heartbreaking grace. Sophia drawing magic potions of chamomile tea, Pilar fashioning a crown of laurel leaves to ward off the bad air. But the villa felt smaller, the air heavier, as if the Pyrenees themselves pressed down. Then came the betrayal, swift as a sirocco wind. It was All Saints' Day, the streets alive with marigold garlands and candlelit vigils. Lila, seeking solace, drove to the coast, Sitges, the rainbow haven where she'd once danced under pride flags. There, in a harborside cafe scented with salt and sangria, she ran into Javier, an old flame from her pre-Rose days. Javier, now a silver-tongued journalist with a podcast on Iberian scandals, poured sympathy like Rioja. "Lila, amor, you deserve the world," he said, his hand lingering too long on hers. Emboldened by wine and weariness, Lila confessed it all. Rose's will, the adoption, the fortune funneled to causes instead of kin. Javier's eyes gleamed. "A story for the ages," he murmured. "The heiress who spurned her blood for this." By dawn, Lila regretted it, the confession sour in her gut like overripe figs. But damage done, Javier's article hit the wires that week. Lesbian tycoon's radical will. Quadruplets over family, queers over legacy. Tabloids feasted. El País decried eccentric excess. Fox News back home crowed about woke waste. Harlan pounced, filing a challenge from Sacramento, claiming undue influence. The villa became a siege. Reporters at the gates, cousins calling Lila traitor. Worst, the girls overheard, huddled in their shared room, whispers turning to sobs. "Are we the mistake?" Carmen asked Elena, voice muffled in a pillow. Rose, confined to bed, rallied for confrontation. Propped on silk pillows, she summoned Lila to the master suite, the room awash in afternoon light filtering through lace curtains. "You spoke to him?" Rose's voice was a rasp, but her gaze unflinching. Lila knelt, tears carving tracks down her cheeks. "I was lost, Rose. Scared. But I never meant." Rose silenced her with a finger to her lips, the gesture tender as their first kiss. "We all falter, mi vida. But betrayal? That's a choice." The words hung, heavy as cathedral incense. Lila fled to the garden, where Pilar found her weeping among the roses. "Tia Lila," the girl said, climbing into her lap. "Mama Rose says love prunes the thorns. We fix it." That night, as thunder rumbled over the Montserrat peaks, the family gathered in the library. Rose, in a velvet robe that swallowed her frame, read from her will aloud, voice weaving through clauses like a lullaby. The girls, cross-legged on the Persian rug, absorbed it. The vineyard shares the Barcelona home, the promise of university in Madrid or Berkeley. "This isn't about money," Rose said, pulling them close. "It's about roots. You four, you're my vintage, blended from the best years." Lila, redeemed by their circle, vowed silently to shield them. But the world outside churned. Harlan arrived unannounced 2 days later, a bear of a man in cowboy boots and a Stetson, pounding the knocker like Judgment Day. The girls peeked from the stairs as he bellowed at Lila through the peephole. "Tell my sister the family's coming for what's ours." Elena, fire in her veins, slipped out the back and circled to the gate, her small fist raised. "Go away, Tio Malo. This is our casa." Harlan blinked at the fierce sprite, her green eyes mirrors of Rose's own. For a moment something cracked. Regret? Pity? But he turned on his heel, muttering about lawyers. The incident ignited the girls' protectiveness, a fierce bloom. They took to guarding Rose like lion cubs. Sophia brewing herbal teas from the market, Carmen and Pilar composing defense songs on a borrowed guitar. Elena drafting letters to the newspapers in wobbly script. "Leave Mama alone," one read. "She loves us best." Lila, watching their unity, felt the stirrings of hope amid the grief. Rose too found strength in their light, planning one last outing, a pilgrimage to the vineyards of Priorat, where the soil ran red as her favorite garnacha. As November's chill nipped the air, Rose's body betrayed her further. Nights of delirium, days blurred by pain. Yet in lucid moments she and Lila stole to the balcony, the city sprawling below like a lover's map. "If I go first," Rose whispered, wind tugging her hair, "promise you'll dance for me. And teach them how." Lila nodded, throat tight. "Always, amor. But not yet." The high tide of their drama crested on a fog-shrouded morning, when Javier's podcast dropped its bombshell sequel. Leaked adoption records, painting Rose as a predatory eccentric, preying on vulnerable orphans. The backlash was biblical: protests outside the villa, hate mail scented with brimstone. Harlan's suit gained traction, a California judge freezing assets pending review. Rose, roused from sleep by the clamor, laughed bitterly. "They want my empire? Let them choke on the vines." But the girls? They shattered. Huddled in the kitchen, they plotted rebellion in whispers, their bond a secret fire. "We show them," Elena declared, eyes blazing. "Show the world Mama's truth." The plan unfurled like a hidden scroll from one of Rose's leather-bound histories, scrawled in crayon on the villa's linen napkins during a rain-lashed afternoon. The quadruplets, with their uncanny synchronicity, finishing sentences, mirroring gestures, turned their grief into guerrilla art. Elena, the strategist, sketched a storyboard. For girls on horseback through the Priorat vines, faces painted with grape must, proclaiming Rose's story in song and sign. Sophia sourced props from the attic, Lila's old flamenco shawl, Rose's pearl necklace. Carmen and Pilar handled the tech, smuggling Lila's vintage camcorder from its dusty case. "For the whole world," Pilar said, her small fingers steady on the lens. "So they see us like Mama sees." Lila discovered it by accident, stumbling upon their war room in the sunroom, a fortress of pillows and pilfered figs. Guilt twisted her anew. She'd sown this storm with her loose lips to Javier. "Nina's, this could hurt more," she warned, kneeling amid the chaos. But Elena, unyielding, placed a hand on her arm. "Tia, you hurt, but you fixed. Now we fix for Mama." Their conviction, pure as mountain spring, cracked Lila's resolve. She joined them, teaching harmonies to anthems of acceptance, her dancer's grace lending rhythm to their rehearsal. Rose, sensing the undercurrent, confronted them gently from her chaise in the library, a cashmere throw draped over her knees like a truce flag. "What's this I hear of a grand reveal?" The girls froze, then tumbled forward in a chorus of explanations, words tumbling like autumn leaves. Rose listened, her laughter frail but genuine, tears tracing the lines fate had etched around her eyes. "My little revolutionaries," she murmured, drawing them into her lap despite the ache. Just promise no risks. Your safety is my sunset. To Lila aside she added, let them. It's their story now too. The outing to Priorat was a pilgrimage of stolen joy, orchestrated on a rare clear day when Rose's pain ebbed to a dull hum. The drive wound through terraced hills, olive groves giving way to gnarled garnacha vines heavy with purple clusters. Lila captained the rented van, a battered Fiat piled with blankets and bocadillos, the girls chattering in the back like starlings. Rose, dosed with meds, rode shotgun, her hand in Lila's over the gearshift, the radio crooning Joan Manuel Serrat's ballads of lost loves and stubborn lands. They arrived at Finca El Viento, Rose's favorite estate, a cluster of stone bodegas perched on a ridge, where the air hummed with yeast and earth. The winemaker, a leathery veteran named Paco, greeted them like prodigal kin, uncorking a 15 vintage under a pergola strung with fairy lights. The girls romped through the rows, staining fingers and hems with juice, while Rose and Lila lingered on a bench, the valley unspooling below like a tapestry of rust and gold. Remember our first harvest here? Lila asked, leaning into Rose's shoulder. You and that ridiculous sombrero, me spilling barrels like a fool. Rose chuckled, the sound a precious ember. Best spill of my life. Led to this. As dusk painted the sky in sienna strokes, the girls unveiled their scheme. Paco had rigged a makeshift stage from wine crates, the camcorder perched on a tripod like a sentinel. Elena stepped forward first, shawl draped like a cape, her voice clear as a carillon. We are Elena, Sofia, Carmen, Pilar, the daughters of Rose Whitaker and Lila Morales. The lens captured it all. Their solemn faces, the vines framing them like guardians, Rose and Lila seated behind, hands entwined. One by one they spoke, Sofia on the drawings that captured Rose's secret smiles, Carmen on the dances Lila taught under moonlight, Pilar on the stories of two moms who fought dragons. Elena closed. Mama Rose gives us home, not just house. She loves Tia Lila like stars love night. And we love them. The world should know. Family isn't blood. It's heart. They filmed skits too. Mime of Harlan's bluster chased by tickle attacks. A puppet show where vines rebelled against mean uncles. Laughter wove through tears, the camera impartial witness. Rose, prompted, added her coda voice steady. I've chased fortunes, but this you all is the true wealth. Don't let them dim your light. Lila last danced a seguidilla, the girls clapping rhythm, her skirt swirling like autumn leaves. It ended with a group embrace, the sun dipping behind the Pyrenees, casting them in silhouette, a tableau of defiance and devotion. Back at the villa, editing became a nightly ritual, Sofia splicing footage on Lila's ancient laptop while the others raided the fridge for midnight fuel. They titled it Vides de Amor, Vines of Love, and uploaded it anonymously to YouTube via a VPN Paco provided, seeding links to queer forums and Spanish news aggregators. Let it grow like wine, Elena said, hitting send. The video went viral by midnight, a digital wildfire leaping from TikTok clips to CNN embeds. Views ticked from hundreds to millions. The girls' raw eloquence piercing the noise, their unity a rebuke to the scandals. Comments flooded. Vides de Amor trending in Madrid and Manhattan. Strangers weeping over pixelated hugs. This is what legacy looks like. One user posted. Protests flipped. Rainbow vigils outside the villa, not pitchforks but petals. Even El Pace recanted, running a front-page feature on the quadruplets testament. Harlan's camp reeled. His lawyers, smelling public blood, urged settlement, but he doubled down in a Fox interview, blustering about brainwashed kids and foreign influences. The backlash was seismic, boycotts of his ranch, donors fleeing his pack. Javier, exposed as the leaker, faced doxing and a network suspension, his podcast cratering like a popped cork. For Rose, the surge was bittersweet manna. Strength flickered. She hosted a small gathering in the courtyard, neighbors toasting with her own rose, the girls circulating like tiny ambassadors. Lila, redeemed, danced again. This time with Rose in a waltz adapted for frailty, their steps a whisper against the flagstones. You gave them wings, Lila breathed. Rose smiled faint. We did, Amor. Together. But cancer waits for no virality. By mid-November, Rose's decline accelerated. Breaths shallow as autumn gusts, visions blurring the line between memory and morphine. The girls, sensing the tide's turn, clung tighter, sleeping in rotations by her bed, their small hands a lifeline. One night, delirium gripped Rose. She mistook Lila for young Clara, murmuring apologies for a youth cut short. Lila held her, rocking gently. "Hush, it's me. You're forever." The confrontation with Harlan came unbidden, a week before Thanksgiving, though the girls insisted on turkey, Googling recipes with wide-eyed zeal. He appeared at dawn, not with bluster but defeat, hat in hand on the doorstep. Lila answered, steel in her spine. "What now, Harlan?" He looked older, lines etched deeper, eyes flicking past her to the girls peeking from the hall. "Saw the video," he grunted. "Those kids. They got fire. Like her." A pause heavy as harvested grapes. "I was wrong. The will stands. Just tell Rose I said sorry. For everything." Lila related that afternoon, Rose lucid enough to nod, a tear escaping. "Blood thins but it doesn't sever. Send him a case of the '98 Cabernet. Vintage piece." The girls cheered, Pilar declaring it the best magic yet. Yet joy was fleeting. Rose slipped into hospice care at home, the villa transformed. Medical bed in the sunroom, overlooking the garden where jasmine still bloomed defiant. The world watched, pray for Rose hashtags mingling with fan art of the quadruplets as Vine sprites. Offers poured in, therapists for the girls, residencies for Lila, but she waved them off. "We're whole here." The final days blurred into a vigil of stories and songs. Elena read from Rose's journals, tales of Napa sunrises and San Francisco dawns. Sophia sketched their family tree, roots twisting through oceans. Carmen and Pilar sang flamenco lullabies, voices harmonizing like bells. Lila, ever the anchor, whispered promises. "I'll take them to the vineyards every year. Plant a tree for you." On a crystalline morning, November 28th, as the first light gilded the spires of the cathedral across the way, Rose Whitaker drew her last breath. She went holding Lila's hand, the girls clustered close, their curls mingling with her silver strands. No fanfare, just the soft beep of monitors fading to silence, and a room redolent of love's quiet incense. The world mourned instantly, headlines from the New York Times to La Vanguardia. Eulogies praising the architect of unconventional kin. But the true shock came 2 days later, at Rose's memorial in the Priorat bodega. Paco had opened the cellars, vines draped in white gauze like mourners' veils. Hundreds gathered. Activists in rainbow pins, winemakers toasting with upturned glasses, villagers bearing bouquets of wild thyme. Lila spoke first, voice steady as Iberian steel. "Rose didn't just build empires, she built us." Then the girls, dressed in simple white shifts, faces solemn but unbroken, took the stage. Not with words but action. They unveiled a plaque at the vineyard's heart, engraved, "For Rose, Vidas de Amor Eterno." But the bombshell? Each girl in turn pledged her inheritance share, not to personal gain but to a global fund. Scholarships for orphaned LGBTQ+ youth, Romani education initiatives, flamenco academies for girls like their mothers. "We don't need money," Elena declared, microphone dwarfing her frame. "We need the world to change. Like Mama did." Gasps rippled, then thunderous applause. Cameras flashed. The moment beamed worldwide, shares spiking as donors pledged millions overnight. Harlan in the crowd wiped his eyes, later donating his own plot to the cause. "Javier?" He recanted publicly, funding a queer media grant in atonement. The quadruplets vow shocked not with scandal but subversion. For little girls barely into double digits, flipping fortune into force for the marginalized. It humanized Rose's legacy, proving love's yield infinite. In the weeks that followed, Barcelona wrapped the family in its ancient embrace. The villa no longer a besieged fortress, but a hearth aglow with tentative dawn. Lila, hollowed by loss yet buoyed by purpose, navigated the grief's jagged shoals with the girls as her compass. Mornings began with café con leche on the balcony, the Mediterranean a vast blue promise, where they'd recount Rose's quips. "More sugar, Lila, life's too bitter already," and let laughter pierce the ache. The quadruplets, resilient as Carlist oaks, mourned in bursts. Elena boxing shadows in the courtyard, Sophia filling sketchbooks with spectral portraits of Rose amid the vines, Carmen and Pilar harmonizing dirges that softened to defiant jigs. The fund, dubbed Rose's Roots, exploded beyond their wildest crayon dreams. Initial pledges from the video topped €50 million, with tech moguls and Hollywood allies, stirred by the girls' unscripted grace, pouring in more. Lila, appointed steward, funneled it wisely. A Seville center for Romani families, Napa scholarships for queer vintners, Madrid residencies blending dance and viticulture. The girls became unofficial mascots, their faces on murals from the Ramblas to the Golden Gate, but Lila shielded them fiercely. Their children first, she'd tell the press, her dancers poise unyielding. Ambassadors second. Winter settled soft over Catalonia. All Saints marigolds giving way to Christmas luminarias flickering in Gothic alleys. The villa twinkled with lights, the girls strung themselves, tinsel tangled in their curls as they baked polverons to Rose's lopsided recipe. Too much cinnamon always. Harlan's olive branch arrived mid-Advent. Not just the Cabernet case, but a plane ticket and an invitation to Sacramento. See the old vines, his note read. Tell the girls their uncles got stories too. Lila weighed it, consulting the girls over hot chocolate. Mama would want bridges, Sophia said wisely. They went a week before the new year. A whirlwind of jet lag and jet streams, landing in the fog-shrouded valleys where Rose had first tasted rebellion. The Whitaker Ranch was a time capsule. Sprawling adobe hacienda, barns red as barn owls, rows of Cabernet stretching to the horizon like whispered secrets. Harlan met them at the gate, transformed. No Stetson, just a flannel shirt and a tentative smile, his eyes crinkling like his sister's. The girls sized him up warily, but Pilar, ever the icebreaker, thrust forward a jar of Villa-made marmalade. For peace, she declared. Harlan chuckled, deep and rumbling. Smart as your ma. He gave them the tour. The original press house where Rose had hidden love letters in corked bottles, the hillside where she planted her first experimental blend, a tart Viognier that mirrored her sharp wit. Over dinner, grilled quail and heirloom salads, the stories flowed. Harlan confessed his own regrets. The years stewing in resentment, the wife who'd urged reconciliation too late. Rose was the brave one, he admitted, passing the potatoes. Ran toward light. I hid in shade. Elena, fork-paused, asked, why now? Harlan met her gaze. Your video showed me family ain't a ledger. The visit mended more than rifts. It rooted the girls in Rose's American soil, their laughter echoing through the frost-kissed vines. Lila watched, heart swelling. Here was the blend Rose had chased. Spanish fire tempered by Yankee grit. They left with cuttings for the villa garden. Harlan's promise to visit Barcelona in spring. Back home, the new year dawned with purpose. Lila enrolled the girls in a bilingual school near La Boqueria. Their chatter now laced with algebra and ancient myths. Evenings, they tended the jasmine, the plants unfurling petals as if in salute. Lila danced again, not for crowds but in the courtyard. The girls clapping castanets, their steps syncing like the quadruplet's own heartbeat. Dreams of Rose visited. Silver hair in the moonlight, whispering, keep pouring amore. The vintage improves with time. Challenges lingered, of course, grief's aftershocks, the world's prying eyes. A tabloid splashed heiress orphans fortune's follies? But the girls countered with a follow-up video, baking Rose's disastrous cookies, narrating her failures as triumphs. Views soared, trolls silenced by their joy. Javier, seeking absolution, interviewed Lila for a redemption series, her candor on love's frailties turning it into a quiet hit. By spring the villa bloomed riotous. Wisteria veiling arches, the girls' cuttings taking hold in neat rows. They planted a memorial grove in Priorat. For saplings for the quadruplets, one elder for Rose, Lila's flamenco skirt the ribbon on the plaque. Paco poured the first bottle from those vines years hence, but for now it was enough to dig, to dream. The true humanism unfolded in small graces. One balmy May evening as cicadas hummed and the city exhaled after Feria de Gracia, Lila found Elena on the balcony, staring at the stars. Will we forget her? The girl asked, voice small. Lila pulled her close, the scent of sea and sibling mingling. Never, me soul. She's in the stories we tell, the dances we share. And in you, fierce as her ×4. The others joined, a pile of limbs and whispers planning summer. A road trip to Seville's Romani festivals, Napa for Harlan's harvest. Lila smiled into the dusk, Rose's absence a hollow ache softened by their warmth. Love, she'd learned, wasn't a finite vintage but an endless barrel, refilled by those who tended it. Years later, when the girls graduated, Elena, a lawyer for the underserved, Sophia, an illustrator of queer folktales, Carmen, a choreographer blending ballet and bolero, Pilar, a vintner with a social conscience, the world would remember Rose not as the dying magnate, but the matriarch who gambled her empire on heart. Her actions through them shocked not with scandal but salvation. Proof that family forged in fire outshines any born of blood. And in Barcelona's eternal sun, Lila would dance on, the vines whispering Rose's name.